Hey there, and welcome. If you're here, you're probably dealing with one of the most confusing and painful things in a relationship, when an avoidant partner just goes silent. It can feel like you've fallen into a black hole of uncertainty. Well, think of this as your map. We're going to decode what's happening behind that silence and chart a path toward clarity and, maybe, reconnection. All right, let's get into it. This is the big question, isn't it? The one that keeps you up at night. One minute, things seem okay, or at least you're managing. And the next, just nothing. Radio silence. But here's the thing. This silence isn't random. There's actually a pretty predictable pattern at play here, and understanding it is the very first step to getting your own footing back. So let's start at the beginning, the disappearance itself. For you, this initial stage is just filled with confusion and anxiety, right? But for the avoidant partner, that silence is a tool. It's their way of deactivating overwhelming feelings of pressure. But what's actually going on for them once that wall of silence goes up? Now, here's what's really fascinating. This period of no contact, it isn't static. Your partner isn't just sitting there frozen in time. According to the source material, they're actually going through a very distinct psychological evolution, a journey with specific phases. Understanding this journey can completely demystify their behavior. Okay, this timeline lays out the whole process brilliantly. For the first 2 weeks, you're in the relief phase. They feel this sense of release from pressure and they dive deep into distractions like work or hobbies. Then from about weeks 3 to 8, the curiosity phase kicks in. Your silence starts to get to them and you might see these tiny little sides, what the source calls breadcrumbs, like a story view or a random meme. This isn't necessarily them missing you, it's more like a little poke to see if you're still on the hook. And finally, we hit the decision phase between weeks 7 and 12. With the pressure gone, nostalgia and idealization of the relationship can really set in. This is the crucial window where a decision is often made. And that final phase on the timeline brings us to a critical landmark in this whole process. There's a specific point that acts as a major turning point, the 90-day mark. So why 90 days? I know, it might sound like an arbitrary number, but it represents a really significant psychological threshold. By this point, that initial pressure has completely reset for the avoidant partner, and their view of the relationship has likely hit peak idealization. It's a make or break moment. So here's the bottom line. The 90-day mark is where a few key things converge. For the avoidant, the pressure is gone and nostalgia is at its highest. If contact hasn't been reestablished, the chances of it happening organically start to drop off, and fast. For you, it's a wake-up call. The data suggests that waiting a lot longer, say 9 to 12 months, doesn't actually increase your chances. In fact, it can lead to total indifference on their part, because they just assume you've both moved on. Okay, so you've waited, you've hit this critical window, and you've decided you want to see if reconnecting is possible. So how do you do it? The key here is to shift from passively waiting to strategic low-pressure action. This isn't about grand gestures. It's about carefully testing the waters. Here's a clear 4-step process, straight from the source material. First, and this is the most important part, you have to be in a neutral emotional state. If you reach out from a place of anxiety, they will feel it. Second, keep the message short and simple. Long emotional essays are just seen as threatening. Third, offer a clear, low-stakes anchor, like grabbing a coffee or a quick phone call. And finally, you have to give them space. The goal is to invite, not to demand. And this example right here, it's just perfect. It shows you exactly what that looks like in practice. The message is calm, it's clear, it offers 2 simple options, and that phrase, "let me know if that works for you," puts the ball entirely in their court with 0 pressure. It's an invitation that's easy to accept, and just as easy to decline, which is exactly what makes it feel safe for them. Now, let's say they respond positively. You meet for that coffee. Is this real progress? Or are you just getting pulled back into the same old pattern? This is the final and, honestly, the most important part of the journey. Evaluating their response to figure out the future of the relationship. You can evaluate progress from a distance. The source material is crystal clear on this. You need a period of short, direct interactions, about a month, to collect real, tangible data on their behavior. A single text or one good conversation is not enough. You're looking for patterns. This comparison chart is your evaluation tool. Are they taking responsibility for their part, or are they still blaming you? Is their effort consistent, or are you back on that hot and cold roller coaster? Can you actually talk about deeper subjects, or does everything stay on the surface?
But the most telling indicator is that last one. How do you feel? If you still feel anxious and insecure, that's a massive red flag that the core dynamic hasn't changed, no matter what they say.
So we've walked through the timeline of the silence, the critical 90-day window, how to reestablish contact, and what to look for. You now have the map to decode the situation and the tools to evaluate it. The power is back in your hands. The final question isn't what are they going to do, but with this newfound clarity, what are you going to choose?